Choose happiness greets you all. In the past, Cao Cao once said a heroic sentence: "I would rather betray the world than let the world betray me." He dared to say that because he had the ability to control the whole world. Successful people always have their own unique set of survival rules. So how do we become successful like Cao Cao? Today, I will analyze for everyone the survival principles of successful people through 3 words. Do not reason, do not get along, do not argue. Not being reasonable does not mean being unreasonable or lying, but rather a reminder that this world is not a place for reasoning. Whether it is in the family, at work, facing superiors, the weak, or injustice, it is unrealistic to rely solely on reason to solve problems. Take family life as an example. Many people are used to communicating outside. When they come home, they still try to argue right and wrong with their spouse. But the family does not need cold arguments, but warm love. A man who always wants to argue with his wife only proves that he no longer loves her. When you use all kinds of reasoning to analyze right and wrong, your partner will only be more disappointed and lonely. Therefore, no matter how successful you are outside, when you come home, take off your rational mask and be more tolerant and caring for your family. In work and business, people do not pursue reasoning, but benefits. As the saying goes, the world is all about profit. The world is all about profit. As long as you make your interests clear, everyone will agree and support you. On the contrary, no matter how right you are, you will still be isolated. Therefore, the best way to communicate at work is to put yourself in the shoes of your colleagues and customers and help them gain benefits. Only then can you gain respect and a solid foothold. For superiors, reasoning is even more inappropriate. The most important thing in this situation is politeness. No matter how right you are, always be respectful and humble. The more forceful your argument, the more likely you are to be labeled as unreasonable and ill-mannered. If you encounter a powerful superior, you need to be more patient and respectful. Only in this way can you avoid making enemies and secretly accumulating power for yourself. With weaker people, such as subordinates or the next generation, we should not reason too much. Han Xin's saying, "Depend on people, assign work, and divide tasks appropriately," means that a good leader must know how to develop each person's strengths and put them in the right position, instead of criticizing their weaknesses. A leader's humanity is shown in giving subordinates the opportunity to create flexible space for them to grow and be creative, instead of always requiring everything to be clear and transparent. When your subordinates feel trusted and respected, they will follow you willingly. On the contrary, if you always reason, they will find you inhuman and eventually leave you. When faced with conflicts, we cannot rely on reason alone to resolve them. For example, if you argue or even fight with others, even if you are right, it is difficult to escape legal punishment. Nowadays, when dealing with cases of violence, the first thing law enforcement agencies consider is not who is right, but the severity of the action. As long as you cause injury, whether you are right or wrong, you will still be held legally responsible. Therefore, instead of arguing about right and wrong, think about how to use legal tools to protect your rights. Similarly, when facing injustice, we need to know how to use the law to fight, not just cry for peace. As in the recent traffic incidents of some drivers, many actions due to lack of control and inability to restrain themselves have caused scuffles and fights that caused injuries. All of these actions were recorded by the victims and shared on social media platforms. In the end, the perpetrators received appropriate punishment. It can be seen that instead of just complaining and arguing, learn how to protect your own rights. Only then can you survive in this world that does not rely on reason. Gain a firm foothold in society. Of course, being unreasonable does not mean that we can be unreasonable and act recklessly. If so, it would become another form of insolence. As Lu Bue said, everything must have a limit, and going beyond it is not good. We refuse to be bound by reason, but we also need to adhere to the basic principles of right and wrong, knowing when to stop. That is the wisdom and understanding of a strong person. Next, we will discuss the second word of a strong person: not sociable. The 3 words, not sociable, in the eyes of many people have a negative meaning. It may seem that being unsociable means being isolated, weird, uncooperative, But in fact, when you look closely at people who are truly successful in life, you will realize that they are all a little different, not easily blending in with the crowd, not blindly following trends, or looking for social relationships. They are willing to be unsociable, not because of their isolated personality, but because they clearly understand that most social relationships in this world are ineffective, difficult to bring real value to themselves. Take parties in everyday life as an example. Parties and meetings seem to be opportunities to expand relationships, express yourself, and seek opportunities. But have you ever thought about how many of the people you meet through those occasions really understand and are willing to help you? Probably very few. Most of the time, these social events are just a formality, a waste of time and money without any significant value. Some people, in order to appear sociable, always try to assert their presence. It is no different than always wanting to be lost in the crowd. They are afraid of being alone, afraid of being ostracized. Even though they have to participate in poor quality relationships, they still try to integrate, afraid of being isolated. But it is this blind following of the crowd that makes them lose themselves, forgetting what they truly desire. In contrast, mentally strong people do not waste their time on meaningless social interactions. They are willing to live a solitary life, focusing on studying the things that truly interest them, improving their knowledge and talents. In the process, they gain a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction that people who only know how to socialize never reach. As the philosopher Nietzsche once said, "Every truly great thought is born in solitude. Every truly profound soul is forged in silence and contemplation." Of course, being unsociable doesn't mean you have to be alone, uncommunicative, and uninterested in others. On the other hand, strong people, although they may seem independent and different, are very good at building high-quality relationships. They do not value superficial relationships, but especially cherish those who truly understand and empathize with them. In their eyes, social interaction is never an end in itself, but only a tool to achieve larger goals. They do not seek to please others for fame, but are willing to make efforts to gain the support of like-minded people. Only by being with the best people can they continuously improve and surpass themselves. Not easily blending into the crowd and being willing to choose their own path is actually a manifestation of courage and confidence. People who always follow the crowd and compare themselves to others often like to feel safe, not believing that they deserve a better life. Meanwhile, strong people who dare to be different and live their own way can calmly face everything. Over time, practicing independence, they have built a strong inner self. They believe that as long as they are excellent enough, they will surely attract people who understand them best and create a world that belongs to them. As the saying goes, if you sincerely influence others, humanity will naturally come. When you have a unique soul and are willing to walk your own path alone, you will meet people who truly appreciate you. So you don't need to pay attention to those who make fun of you for not fitting in. It's just their annoyance with your differences and your uniqueness. Truly strong people don't need to fit in by force. They just need to be true to themselves and wait for time to bring the perfect answer. Finally, let's talk about the third element in training for strength. Don't join or enter the vortex. Lao Tzu once said, "Because you do not compete, no one in the world can compete with you." Macau casino king Ha Hong San also frankly shared that not gambling is winning. This business legend, although successful with a career associated with casinos, never gambles himself and does not allow his family to do so. This proves that not following the crowd or easily getting caught up in a fight is a sign of great intelligence. In life, we often encounter malicious criticism or suspicion. Many people, when faced with these things, often react by explaining, arguing, and trying to prove their innocence. However, they do not realize that this approach not only fails to dispel rumors, but also makes them weaker and more tired. As the old saying goes, if you want to blame someone, there is no reason to be afraid. When someone deliberately defames you, no matter how much you explain, you cannot change their mind. They raise questions, only to lure you into their logical trap, forcing you to tie yourself up in unnecessary justifications. Once you start explaining, no matter what you say, you still cannot escape the verbal trap that the other party has set. The more eager you are to prove, the more they cling to you until you are cornered and have nothing left to say. Therefore, when faced with malicious suspicions, the smartest thing to do is not to enter their game, not to explain, and not to respond. As the saying goes, those who understand you don't need your explanation. Those who don't understand you, no matter how much you explain, it's useless. Instead of wasting words, use silence and action to respond to rumors. Let the results prove everything. As long as you have no shame in your conscience and keep moving forward, time will restore your innocence. As the saying goes, clear water will naturally be clear, muddy water will naturally be muddy. The more you justify yourself, the easier it is for those who take advantage of you to attack you. Only by not playing that game can you protect yourself to the fullest. Similarly, in complex relationships, maintaining independence and peace of mind is extremely important. In social psychology, there is a concept called the matchmaker effect. It implies that when different vegetables are marinated together in a jar, they will gradually develop the same flavor. Conversely, when marinated separately, each vegetable will retain its own unique flavor. This example clearly illustrates that if you cannot influence the people around you, you will be easily influenced by them. In daily life, people who are always sad or complaining are like a virus that can silently transmit negative emotions to you. On the contrary, if you are in a positive and forward-looking group, you will also become happier and more motivated. Therefore, strong people need to know how to build a psychological barrier so that they are not ruined by the surrounding gossip. Specifically, stay away from people who are always jealous, envious, or complaining. With words full of negative energy, learn to handle them coldly, ignore them, and do not respond. Instead of sinking together, keep your distance. Create a quiet space for yourself to do truly meaningful things. Only by remaining detached and not being swept away by the flow can you remain pure and unpolluted by the environment around you. However, remaining independent does not mean being indifferent to the suffering of others. As the saying goes, respect the elderly as you would your parents. Love the young as you would your own children. For those who need help, we should still enthusiastically lend a helping hand, providing the necessary warmth and support. But when faced with negative emotions and unnecessary arguments, we need to learn to stay away, not to get caught up in them. This is a form of wisdom, perseverance, and also a wise choice. When someone is sarcastic, provocative, or intentionally trying to make you angry, the best response is to not stoop to their level. People who want to bring you down are just trying to dazzle you and waste your time and energy, distracting you from your goals. Once you fall for their bait, you are letting them get away with it. So when you are maliciously attacked by others, the wise thing to do is not to argue and just give up. The more you explain, the more likely you are to be seen as hiding something. In the end, you are the one who suffers. Only when you do not enter the game, do not let them drag you, will the false rumors naturally disappear over time. As Lao Tzu once said, a good fighter leaves no trace of glory. A good debater does not need to argue. A good worker does not need to be discussed by many people. Not arguing with petty people, not wasting energy on empty words is great wisdom and true courage. It is normal for people to have different opinions, but when expressing disagreements, we need to learn to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, using empathy to understand them, instead of trying to win or lose. Many arguments become tense not because of differences in opinions, but because both sides lack basic respect, only wanting to find joy in the other side's failure or concession. But the mindset of a strong person is not like that. They understand that competing is never the action of a wise person. True strength lies not in comparing yourself with others, but in the ability to make yourself better. Instead of confronting others, persevere and overcome yourself. Instead of picking on each other, be generous and tolerant to leave each other a way out. Instead of calculating gains and losses, face everything calmly and focus on self-development. Only by not getting caught up in meaningless disputes can you gain ultimate respect. In short, not arguing, not following the crowd, not getting involved in useless games or seemingly negative, but in fact are manifestations of a very high level of intelligence and emotion. In a world full of hustle and bustle and vanity, Those who are not fascinated by appearances, not tempted by glamour, are the truly strong. They are not blind, not clingy, not flattering, but always maintain an independent and calm mind. Walk your own path. Perhaps that path is destined to be lonely, but as Nietzsche said, it is better to live alone and become yourself than to blend in with the crowd and become one of the countless mediocre people. Only those who dare to separate themselves, dare to choose their own path, can reach their own world, achieve an incomparable self. Although not all of us are geniuses like Cao Cao, as long as we grasp the principles of strong people with an attitude of not arguing, not being greedy for numbers, and not participating in meaningless fights, we will surely find the most suitable position for ourselves to live a peaceful and leisurely life. As the saying goes, go where others dare not go, do what others dare not do. That is not only the courage of strong people, but also the wisdom of life that anyone should learn. In this frivolous and noisy world, everyone is looking for their own life coordinates, pursuing peace and self-reliance in their souls. But on that journey, we often lose ourselves, are bound by trivial matters and the surrounding voices, unable to listen to our hearts and follow the path we desire. At that time, try to reflect on the 3 principles of strong people. Don't argue, don't go along with the crowd, don't get involved in pointless fights. At first glance, these words may seem negative, even counterintuitive. But if you look deeper, you'll realize that they are expressions of high intelligence and emotion. First of all, not arguing doesn't mean being unreasonable or stubborn, but rather a reminder that arguing is not always the best way to solve problems. Whether in the family or at work, whether facing relatives or strangers, it is not always necessary to argue and accept everything. Take married life as an example. Between husband and wife, nothing is absolutely right or wrong. Family needs love and tolerance, not endless arguments. Many times, the more you try to explain, the more the feelings between the two of you cool down. So when you get home, put aside your reasoning and calculations, and spend more patience and warmth to nurture this little home. Finally, not getting involved in meaningless games reminds us that when faced with the complexity of the world and relationships, keep a calm attitude. Sometimes, right and wrong have no absolute standards, and success and failure are not fixed. Instead of wasting your time and emotions on useless arguments, keep yourself a quiet space to do something truly meaningful. When others criticize and gossip about you, the best response is to ignore them. The more you argue, the more you put yourself at a disadvantage. The truth always exists in the heart of people. There is no need to argue everywhere to prove it. Learn how to not get caught up in gossip, not let negative emotions dominate, to keep calm and peaceful in your heart. From there, face the storms of life with a peaceful mind. Kindness and integrity are fundamental principles of being human. When faced with the suffering of others, we still need to extend a helping hand, bringing warmth and hope. But that kindness must come from the heart, not to satisfy the expectations of others. That integrity must be an inner calling, not an external pressure. Only when we are not affected by external things, not weighed down by vanity, can we truly live firmly and peacefully, enjoying the fullness from within our souls. Each person's life always revolves around choices and renunciations. Choose simplicity or choose perseverance. Choose to go with the flow or go against the flow to move forward. Choose to bow to reality or choose to rush towards your dream. These seemingly small choices often determine a person's entire life. A strong person is not only outstanding in talent, but also steadfast and unyielding in spirit. Not arguing, not blending in with the majority, not entering into useless disputes may seem negative at first glance, but in fact it is a manifestation of positivity. At first glance it may seem weak, but in fact it is resilience. Only with such a mindset can we keep ourselves pure amidst the lies of human affairs and steadily move forward on the long river of life. Each of us should learn from strong people, train our minds, and elevate our vision. Learn to use the calmness of not arguing to face the right and wrong, the courage of not blending in to find yourself, and the wisdom of not stepping in to resolve conflicts. In this way, over the years, we will gain more and more understanding and clarity, achieving a life without shame in our conscience. As the saying goes, great ways are often simple, great wisdom often appears naive. Understanding the survival philosophy of the strong, you will also understand the truth of life. Don't mind the gossip. Don't care about the noise of the outside world. Let your soul be like a clear, peaceful, and deep stream. Use the heart of a strong person to face life. Use a calm and composed attitude to overcome the storms. At that time, you are the most brilliant character in your life, the strongest person who deserves to be respected the most. I hope that you and I can both possess the heart of a strong person, live a meaningful life without shame in our conscience. In the midst of the complex flow of life, we may not be able to decide our circumstances, but we can certainly control our mood. Practice with all your heart. Be tolerant with all your love to become outstanding and succeed in a worthy way. That is the truth of life and the great wisdom in life.